Mr. Phelan, would you like to make a short opening statement?
Good evening, Chair. No, thank you.
Good, thanks. I'll go to Senator Cash.
Thank you very much. Just updating us from last estimates, because if you recall, we couldn't talk about a lot at the last estimates. Can I just get you to sort of now talk through, now that this has been in place for some time, the administration, just the role of the Fair Work Commission in terms of the administration and what specific steps have been taken to monitor the administration?
Good evening, Senator. My role in relation to the administration of the Construction General Division of the CFMEU was set out in a statement that I released on the 3rd of October last year. I tabled a copy of it on notice.
So nothing's changed since then?
In terms of the my roles, responsibilities established under the Registered Organisations Act as amended, particularly around Section 323, that obviously enliven the administration of the division.
So just then, in terms of monitoring this particular administration,
yes.
Given that this is a legislative administration, can I just ask you what specific steps you've taken to monitor this administration?
There's a number of things, Senator. So under the scheme and under the amended RO Act, my functions, and we will table my statement again, is to appoint Mark Irvin KC as the administrator to set the remuneration, to certify any rule alterations that go to the Construction General Division to make sure that they are consistent with the scheme, to be referred complaints from the administrator, and to investigate and to bring civil penalty proceedings in relation to non-compliance. And also, if I'm satisfied there are reasonable grounds to do so, I can investigate if the scheme is being effectively implemented.
Have you done that yet? Just that last one?
The administrator, the staff of the administration, have established while the administration operates and is independent of government and certainly not subject to government direction or direction from me, we've established governance arrangements for the interactions between the regulator and the division, which for my purposes is conducting the business of a union. Last Friday, I received an updated report from the administrator outlining his operations.
Was that the one that was tabled in Parliament?
No, it's a separate
one. Okay.
And this goes to the open and transparent nature of my role as the regulator,
yes.
But obviously to ensure that I'm satisfied that the scheme is.
Are you able to table that?
I can.
Oh, thank you very much.
If it would assist, I know that we're short of time here, but if you'd like, I can go through some of the major.
I will, and what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm just going to read out some questions just in case you can actually also address them. Okay. In terms of. So I was going to ask how many complaints have been referred to you by the administrator since the administration commenced.
We have received, I'll answer that question, we've received two complaints. 2
complaints?
And one of them we have initiated an investigation into. Some information about that complaint is on our website, and Mr Enright could provide further information on it if you wish.
Thank you. And then what is the current status of the 2 investigations? Oh, sorry, one is an investigation. Yes. What's the other one?
Mr Enright, would you like to?
Thank you.
Executive Director of the Fair Work Commission. Thank you, Senator. The other matter was a matter that fell outside our jurisdiction. It related to a particular issue that didn't fall within the regulatory sphere of the General Manager.
So what then happens with that?
We advised the administrator about that, and at the same time, Senator, that precise same issue was reported to law enforcement agencies. And so it fell out of our jurisdiction.
So it refers off to the law enforcement agencies.
Yes, Senator.
And just in relation to the investigation, I know you said it was on the website, but just very briefly, what's that in relation to?
This is an allegation of potential anti-avoidance matter related to Mr Greenfield.
And that was one we discussed last time, if I recall. And so you have now commenced the investigation into that, but yes. Not proceedings.
No, Senator. We've conducted and are conducting that particular investigation, and we're pursuing obvious matters such as trying to obtain CCTV footage that's involved in the allegation, but it's very much an ongoing investigation.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. I will ask you now, is there anything else you can now take us through, just as the highlights in terms of the statement?
So the report that we hopefully you've just tabled, it's 6 pages long and outlines 100 discrete matters, activities that the Administrator has conducted since the commencement of the administration. Amongst other things, the report indicates that the administration has facilitated the application of enterprise agreements to the Commission. So since the date of appointment, the Commission has approved 444 CFMEU construction general agreements, with approximately 45 having been lodged within the last fortnight. And due to improved compliance with the statutory requirements with those agreements, they are now being approved within a median of 8 to 10 days from the date of application to the date of the agreement being approved, which, as far as I'm aware, Senator, is as far. These other things the Administrator has identified in his report to me. He's formally commenced investigations into alleged conduct into New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia. He's referred allegations in intelligence to APRA, AFP and my office, which we've just traversed. He has issued notices to assist the Administrator, terminated or dismissed 3 individuals, received final reports in relation to the conduct in New South Wales and South Australia, which I think were tabled in his report or attached to his report that was tabled yesterday. He's commenced an inquiry into violence, threats of violence and menacing conduct within the Queensland Construction Division. He's visited each of the divisional branch offices across Australia. He's made several appointments, including to CBUS, IncoLink and the Victorian Building Industry Consultative Council, regularised arrangements with the Commission as to the day-to-day operations and contacts in relation to the governance of the relationship between my office as his regulator and the divisional branches. He's recovered more than $3.5 million in members' funds from third parties. He's highlighted the urgent need for enhanced worker safety, and he's developed and released an interim menacing conduct policy, including issuing...
An interim medicine?
Developed and released an interim menacing conduct policy, including issuing directions through the executive officers to all organisers prohibiting menacing conduct. And as I understand, as the report attests, he's also participated, or his office participated in several meetings of the National Construction Industry Forum.
Excellent. And that was the one. That was what you just tabled, is it?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask you about how incidents are handled between the Fair Work Commission and the Administrator, given, as you said, it is independent, so I completely understand that. One of the issues that we had spoken about previously in Outcome 3, it was an incident in February where a CFMEU organisers' union car was firebombed in the middle of the night, just 3 months after his house was vandalised with the word CFMEU dog. I tabled the article earlier, but I can provide you with a copy if you need one.
I'm aware of that.
You are, right. And so I just wanted to ask you then, what happens when you now see something like this? Do you have a process whereby you touch base with the Administrator to ensure that he's also aware of it?
Those communications would occur at the officer level in the general course of things.
So at the
officer level, it wouldn't be
myself. Yes,
staff of the Commission from the branch that's responsible for supporting registered organisations will converse with their equivalents in the Office of the Administrator and discuss these sort of activities or alleged activities.
So
Can I assist you, Senator, not only at that level but also in the Joint Agency Working Group, which amongst the AFP and law enforcement agencies and a range of Commonwealth agencies, those are the type of issues that get discussed. Our third meeting of that group was a couple of hours ago, and that and many other matters were discussed. So it's a coordination to make sure, Senator, that the relevant Commonwealth and state agencies and any regulatory agencies are properly focusing on matters within their jurisdiction, and certainly that was part of the discussion.
Do you know if the individual concerned whose car was firebombed has been given any extra security by the CFMEU?
Not that I'm aware of, and in the normal course of things, I wouldn't anticipate that that's something that I would be personally advised of.
Okay, no, I just thought Just in terms of, you may have known that given the sort of the relationship. One of the other things that we'd spoken about in outcome 3, but I've had to pursue it here with you, is the CFMEU administrator recently announced that he would launch the investigation into the culture of violence in the Queensland construction industry. Just in terms of your knowledge of what this investigation is going to look like, what type of investigative methods are going to be used, etc. Who's actually going to be running the inquiry? Is he running it himself? Does the Fair Work Commission provide any assistance?
We receive referrals from the administrator. But my understanding is that, in relation to that, is that it's an on-motion investigation that has been commenced by the administrator.
Yes.
And he will use the powers that have been afforded to him under the amended Registered Organisations Act and under the scheme to conduct that investigation. What may occur at the end of that investigation, and he, as we've seen previously, he may appoint an external complaint or investigation handler. Yep. What may ultimately give cause to a referral to the Fair Work Commission, and then we may then accept that referral and investigate it. And if we see, on the basis of independent legal advice and meeting my obligations under legal services direction, I might then initiate proceedings.
Okay. Just in terms of the Fair Work Commission itself, so now separate to the administration, this is the Fair Work Commission. Your website has a link to report matters relating to concerns of the CFMEU. How many complaints have you received, and where do the complaints go?
Okay, so this is accurate to the 6th of Feb.
Yes.
And I'm not too sure the date that we established. But in terms of, I will get that information for you. 307 matters have been referred to the Fair Work Ombudsman.
Hold on, just so I get an understanding of what that means. So, the complaints that you've received, is that a different figure to 307?
Yes. In terms of there's a whistleblower function.
Yes.
People can either fill in an online form, or they can contact the number that we established for receiving this information as well. In terms of the absolute number of calls that we received or contacts we received, how many do we have, Mr. Emmerich?
So just to assist Mr Furlong, the dedicated web form was established on the 29th of July 2024.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if Mr Furlong advised you about this, but we've received 865 responses to that web form, and of those, as Mr Furlong has said, 370 matters were referred to the Fair Work Ombudsman, 16 matters to the Australian Federal Police, 3 to the ACCC, the Australian...
How many to the ACCC?
3. And 1 matter to the Work Health and Safety organisation or agency in Queensland.
Is it possible to get an understanding of what, obviously they're whistleblowers, but an understanding of the types of the complaints? Is that something you're able to publicly talk about?
We would be reluctant to do that at the present time, Senator, because many of those disclosures, and you've touched on this earlier, contained requests for anonymity or provided their details but requested not... We're happy to share those with the Fair Work Commission, but in many cases asked the Fair Work Commission not disclose them. And so we would be concerned if we were too finite about the types of complaints.
Well, what I might get you to do is just on notice and have a look as if you can group them in terms of bullying, harassment, intimidation, but don't go any further, obviously, so as not to compromise anybody's identity. Just in terms of, so the 307, the 16, the 3 and the 1, what then happens to the other ones?
So we conduct a detailed analysis of each matter that's raised with the Commission, and if the matters fall within the remit or the jurisdiction of another agency, as exactly for the reasons that you've just mentioned, we refer it to those agencies. If there's no... many of those, I can explain to you or say to you, Senator, many of those reports, rather than contain concerns about the CFMEU, are actually supportive of the CFMEU. And where people engaging with the Commission, saying, being very positive. So there was no need for the Commission to take any action in
So you sort through them and work out what needs to be referred and to which agency if they do.
Exactly, Senator,
okay.
Yes.
Just in terms of the administration itself, do you know how many positions within the CFMEU administration remain vacant? Because there has been some churn in staff. Travis O'Brien, Jared Abbott, I think Alison Curry, Joe Brecic. Do you know if there's any outstanding positions to be filled?
I'm not aware of that, Senator, but
not aware meaning you don't know. The knowledge is not within your possession because that's not something you would know.
That's
yeah,
correct.
Sorry, as opposed to not being aware.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, understood. And then just in terms of, say, Travis O'Brien, Jared Abbott, Alison Curry and Joe Brecic and their departures, would you be made aware of why they departed other than the public statements?
In certain circumstances, I recall receiving an email from Mr Irving about Ms Curry's conclusion of her service, and in that email he indicated that Ms Curry had been brought on to assist with the establishment of the administration, and then at the 6-month period had concluded her service.
Understood. Okay. Can I just touch on it? I've only got a few minutes before I hand over the call, and so I just want to touch very quickly just on another topic. Just in terms of the process for allegations of misconduct for appointed members of the Commission, be it their behaviour in a matter they hold carriage of or another Commissioner, or to another Commissioner or to two Commissioners' staff, what's the process for reporting those allegations?
If they relate to proceedings,
yes.
And there's information that we publish in our annual report about the complaints we received about the conduct of members and about staff. So in 23-24, 54 complaints were received about members and 44 were received about staff, which is a 20% decrease on the previous year. So the Fair Work Act sets out how the President may deal with complaints about members. It's section 581A. So the President can deal with complaints but doesn't have the power to discipline members. So if there is a complaint, to speak plainly, if there's a complaint about a member by a party, then they're supported by staff. They will be dealt with by the President, or he may elect to allocate that to another senior member.
Can the President propose training sessions or other such arrangements to assist the Commissioners in these situations, for example, professional learning support for classes of bullying or the action that they have been responsible for?
The Act provides the President with powers in relation to dealing with complaints, but not about disciplining them. So the President can recommend that a member undertake training or any other intervention that he deems appropriate, his honour deems appropriate at that time. But ultimately, it's up to the member whether or not they actually comply with that.
If they don't comply, then what happens?
I'm not aware of that occurring, Senator. I'll have to take that on notice.
Take it on notice. No, that's not a problem at all. And then also, who's required to pay for that? Is it the Commission itself, or would the member be required to pay personally?
I need to take that on notice as well.
And just in terms of repeated actions of misconduct by a Commissioner, is that reported through to the Minister's office?
The President has the capacity to, if his honour deems it is appropriate, to refer matters to the Minister, yes.
Have any been referred to the Minister's office?
Not that I'm aware of, but in the normal course of things, I may not be aware of those interactions. As you'd be aware, Senator, my role as the General Manager is to assist the President in ensuring the FWC performs its functions and exercises its powers. The relationships between the President and the members often sits outside. It sits outside of my operational remit.
Is it possible then to take on notice numerical data on complaints over the past financial year against appointed members. Can you also specify if it's from an internal complaint or from a party appearing and on notice is fine? And then what course of action has been taken? Can I just go back? I just want to make sure I got your evidence correctly. Just in relation to the CFMEU administration staffing issues, are you aware if the administrator has appointed replacements for the executive directors of Victoria and Queensland?
No. But in terms of the
Sorry, no, you're not aware, or no, he hasn't?
No, I'm not aware.
No, you're not
in terms
aware.
of Victoria. What I am aware of, and you'd be aware of this as well, I think that came up in evidence earlier today, and something that we've commenced initial inquiries into the alleged events that occurred at the Queensland Council of Unions last week.
Yes.
And that's obviously people entering the QCU and threatening, allegedly, possibly threatening or coercing an individual from taking up a role in the administration.
Yep.
We're actively looking into that.
Yeah, you're looking at that one.
Sorry, Senator Cash, can I just check? Was your question whether Mr Furlong was aware of whether the executive officer of the administrator, if that's the right term, had been appointed in Victoria and Queensland?
Correct, yes, yes.
So the report Mr Furlong just tabled from the administrator noted that Jared Abbott was appointed as the Queensland branch executive officer.
So he has been formally appointed? Yep.
Yeah, on the 19th of February. I didn't think there was a vacancy in the Victorian role.
My understanding that Zach Smith holds the role.
Yeah, Zach Smith.
So he does still hold the role?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
I think the Queensland branch was the only one where there was a vacancy.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And thank you. I will now, thank you very much, have a look at that. I'm happy to give the call over and then just see what other questions after the dinner break, unfortunately.
So I'm going to bring them back.
Yeah. Let me just check. No, I'll keep going and I'll check.
Yeah, right. Cool, thanks. Senator Pocock.
Thank you. And thank you for...
We don't. We can dismiss Comcare, and as I usually say, run quickly. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here. I wanted to, let me just clarify your role in relation to the administration of the CFMEU. It's monitoring the administration and investigating if it is effectively implemented. Is that the right language?
Under the scheme, but I still maintain the role as the regulator of all registered organisations, and the Construction General Division is still subject to all of the requirements that any other trade union or employer association has under the RO Act.
So do you have an opinion, given your role to oversee the effective implementation of the administration, about the safety of the administrator at present and the officers who are undertaking that role?
No, Senator. My role is clearly specified in the Act.
So you don't have anything to say on that?
Well, I can certainly say that in relation
would
to the
seem
matter,
to be irrelevant. Keeping them alive and healthy is critical to effective implementation, I would have thought.
And it's certainly not lost on me the challenging circumstances that they're working within, and I in every interaction that I have with the administrator or his officers, I ask them about how they're holding up as much as anything else. But in terms of the well-being, a good example of where my jurisdiction may be enlivened is in relation to what allegedly occurred at the Queensland Council of Unions last week in relation to that alleged conduct and whether or not that contravened the anti-avoidance provisions of the amended RO Act.
Okay.
Can I help, Senator? The Joint Agency Working Group contains all the law enforcement agencies, and when you're talking about safety of the particularly administrator, that's an area that the group of law enforcement and regulators at that group have coverage of some of the material.
Can you tell me about that? I'm sorry. Can you explain?
There's a joint agency working group that's been coordinated by the Australian Federal Police, and that involves all state police agencies.
Okay.
And so if there was a threat against an individual in the CFMEU or anywhere, and it relates to the CFMEU, then it's a matter that would be relevant to the joint agency working group and discussed and coordinated either at the federal level or at the state level.
Also, Senator Pocock, you're absolutely right to be concerned, and we are all very concerned to ensure the safety of the administrator and his team and all of the staff and organisers and officials of the union. I'm not sure if you were here earlier today when I mentioned that the government had funded security for some of the personnel in recognition that these were roles for the administrator and his team that the government effectively had asked them to take on. I think technically the government in the broader sense, Mr Furlong, and also, you know, without going into a lot of detail, some of the threats that have been issued, it's not clear whether they've come from people within the CFMEU who might be there now, might have been there, or whether they're from people in the industry more generally. And so there have been steps taken to try to protect the safety of some of these individuals.
I think it's a topic that's had a lot of public discussion, so clearly anyone watching this might be a top of head consideration, and you're saying there certainly are issues there. When I look to the report that you've tabled, this is a report given to you by the administrator in recent days. It's essentially a list of things done.
Yes, approximately 100 activities since the commencement.
An activity list, as opposed to any kind of evaluation of how things are going.
Again, sorry, I'm not sure if you were here earlier. In addition to the report that Mr Furlong has tabled, yesterday I tabled the report from the administrator, which is much more detailed about how it's going, if you want to put it that way, and what he's been achieving.
And Senator, in addition to that, I've met and I continue to meet and take soundings from a wide range of stakeholders representing many different interests in the building and construction industry. And through my ongoing interactions with the administrator and with many other parties representing a wide range of interests, I've made the following observations. One, the first is that based on all information available to me, the division is currently meeting its obligations under the Registered Organisations Act. Two, the President issued a statement, the President of the Commission, on the 14th of February 2025 that indicated that the open and cooperative interactions with the Administrator have led to higher compliance and significantly reduced timeframes for agreement applications made by the division. And based on this information and ongoing conversation I'm having, it is currently my strong belief that the administration is successfully discharging its functions under the scheme, the rules of the division and the RO Act.
How many agreements did you say earlier? I missed the number when you said it.
Have
been finalised?
444 have been approved.
Have been approved in what period?
I will ask Ms Anderson
and
to come with some of the detail,
is how
because there was a larger number that got the applications were either withdrawn or there were certain other steps that were taken to ensure compliance with the statutory test for enterprise agreement making.
So I'm interested in the number and then how it compares historic. I know these matters are cyclical. That may be a feature also, but you know, I think what people want to know, and we're very concerned, of course, about safety and conditions in the industry while this arrangement is in place, is the bargaining level and the agreement registration at the level that is normal for the sector.
Jennifer Anderson, Acting Executive Director of Tribunal Support Branch. So just to confirm, we've had 439 applications that have been approved since the President announced the additional measures that were to be applied to CFMEU Construction and General Division agreements. So that is to 31 January. So I can take on notice to provide more updated data if you'd like.
It's more the comparison backwards that I'm interested in.
Yeah, so I don't have specific comparison backwards. I think Mr Furlong indicated that we were, at the last estimates, that we were expecting more construction agreements, certainly in the first quarter of this year. His evidence has been that they're continuing to come through. I don't have specific data in front of me.
Could you take that on notice to give us a sort of, say, 3-year backwards comparison? So I think people are in.
Works in bargaining cycles as well.
Yes,
so
I understand that, but and you may want to go longer to make sure you catch that cycle. Sure. But thank you. I read a report in the Saturday paper. I haven't got it with me, but it was an analysis about it included many comments, but one of the comments was by workers within the sector, within construction, who said they were very critical of the administrator's communication with people in the union. I wonder if you have a view about the adequacy of the communication of the administrator and his office with members of the union and people in the industry, and people who are employed in the union as well.
I've read the report as well. Those matters are a matter for Mr Irving to deal with as he sees fit. As I indicated earlier, the administration is operating independent of government and government direction. So I make no observation, nor would it be appropriate for me to do so.
Do you have any observations to make about how adequately or in what ways the administration is reaching out and taking action in relation to employer behaviour? I'm
not aware of specific instances. But I understand that the administrator is on the record indicating that it was in his report that was tabled as well that every participant in the building construction industry has a role and responsibility to ensure broader compliance and bringing that industry into compliance. In conversations that I've had with the administrator, I've referred to the term the behaviour walk past the behaviour accept. And when I presented to the membership of some of Australia's largest constructors and memberships of Australia, some of the larger employer associations, I've repeated those messages as well. I guess I'm curious, and there's been quite a bit of commentary about how corruption in this industry, which has long life, is not just a matter for employee organisation.
I can help you by saying that the administrator's made it quite clear that his investigation into the culture in Queensland, into the perhaps violent culture in Queensland, certainly encompasses both the activities of members possibly within his union and employers. He's made it quite clear that he's intending to focus on both of those both areas, if you like, in the whole industry in Queensland. One of the other points of commentary publicly has been about turnover within the administration staffing. Have you got any concerns about the way that is affecting the operation and its the effectiveness of its work? I think we covered this. I'm not too sure if in the room at the time. Senator. I'm sorry, I was not. Okay. Forgive me for you. We addressed these questions with Senator Cash a little earlier, and what yes, acknowledged that there has been turnover. I understand that certainly one of the senior members of the administration, I received correspondence from the administrator himself about Ms Curry and the conclusion of her service, which was in relation to that she was brought on to assist with the establishment of the administration, and at a 6-month point she chose not to renew her contract. As you're aware, as I'm aware, they're operating in very sort of challenging circumstances. But as we traversed earlier this evening, the senior roles have been filled in each of the branches. They're into that, yes. The administrator's report points to that horrific statistic of 45 deaths in the industry. It says in 2023. I think that's 2024. It's been the same, I think, in the last calendar year to the year before, which is, horrific.
And I think, as they make the point, significantly higher. Is that right? 36% higher than the 5-year average for the industry.
I don't have those stats in there.
No, it's in his report, just here. Are you confident from what you are observing that the industry, the workers in this industry, whether they're in the union or not, are getting the protection and support to stay safe and getting protection for their conditions in the way that they need in a very dangerous industry?
I can only comment on the areas that I'm personally responsible for under the Registered Organisations Act. I don't think that I'm qualified to answer that question, Senator.
If you look at the business coming before the Commission, are you seeing any change in the nature of disputes, action in the construction industry that may reflect a change in the governance of the union and the industry more broadly?
I'd have to take that on notice, Senator.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for your tolerance. I wasn't in the room earlier. I was running between things probably. But I have just one other area of questioning. Is that okay?
We've got a break, but I'd like to let people be released, so if it could be quick, that'd be great.
I'll try and get through it. I'm just interested in your observations from the Commission's perspective about the right to disconnect.
I might ask Ms. Pike to talk about the model term and then very quickly Ms. Eaton to speak about the disputes function, please.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Zoe Wright, Acting Executive Director of the Legal Performance and Engagement Branch. Let me just find my notes for you. So the Commission has a range of functions in relation to the right to disconnect. We were required to make a model term, which went into modern awards. That process was conducted last year and all 155 modern awards were varied to include that term. The Commission also has a range of has a dispute function in relation to the right to disconnect, and Ms Eaton can provide some more detail about that. The Commission was also required to make guidelines about the right. We haven't made the guidelines as yet. The President issued a statement saying that he thought it would be better to wait until we'd had some disputes about, what the right looks like, what the sort of issues being determined before the Commission were before we made the guidelines. So,
great. Yep. So if we can hear about disputes.
So from the 26th of August 2024, people can raise a dispute in relation to the right to disconnect with the Fair Work Commission. Since then, until the 17th of February, we've received 4 applications to deal with a dispute about the right to disconnect. One of those has been withdrawn and the other 3 are currently before the Commission. In addition to that, people can also lodge an application under the General Protections jurisdiction, as the right to disconnect is a workplace right under those provisions. We've received 4 applications under the General Protections jurisdiction. In one of those, a certificate has been issued and the other 3 are still ongoing.
Can you tell us a little about the certificate and what it might have said in that particular case?
I don't have that information before me. I'll have to take that on notice.
So how does that level of dispute for a new right that is, 6 months old, compare to other kinds of disputes that you're seeing? I'd have to say it low, I'm assuming.
Yes. We receive approximately 15,000 fair dismissal applications a year. What we expect is occurring is that if there are these issues are being discussed and resolved in the workplace in the normal course of things.
Which was the intention.
Yes.
And it's built into the law to have exactly that procedure. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your evidence. I really appreciate it, you being here tonight. Thanks, Chair.
Good, thanks very much. We'll now you're excused, so thank you. Thanks for your time. That's the completion of outcome 1. We'll now, of course, we'll come back at what time? Come back at where are we? 7:30. 7:30. Cool. The 7:30.
7:30.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Real great.